It is often said that there's a fine line between love and hate. Many of us navigate this line daily. Friends, family, and co-workers. I can't believe I once liked that guy. Damn, dude, you're such an asshole. My personal favorite is, I absolutely hate that woman. Then there are those who constantly talk about the human condition or tell you to stop being so hateful. They speak about showing your humanity. As for me, I just worry about my condition and that of my family. It's good to have friends, but be realistic. You can only trust friends to a certain extent. In my experience, not all family or friends had my back. This was a hard lesson I learned firsthand. The silver lining was that I discovered who my real family and friends are. My name is Pace Jensen. I'm 29 years old, a former football player, and an avid runner. I'm married to Amy, a fiery and spirited woman. The greatest joy in my life is being the father of 3 little boys. Amy and I had been married for about 7 years when our troubles began. The reason we had kids so quickly and frequently was because I was completely devoted to Amy. She was my everything, and I believe that's where our problems started. We took our vows the day after graduating from UMass, where she majored in secondary education and I majored in management information systems. Amy secured a job at an elite private school in Dallas, while I worked for Empire Funding. We had a strong start in life. Like most marriages, ours had its ups and downs, but nothing major. Our first significant argument was over my desire to buy a 1968 Shelby Cobra GT 500, a candy apple red 2-door fastback with a 302Q in 4.9L, V8, GT350, and white stripes down the middle. Unlike some, I could afford a $100,000 car, but I have a passion for classic ones. As I mentioned, Amy and I had a great life. We lived close to my family, which I thought was beneficial. My parents were in their 50s, and I had a younger brother named Rob, who was 17 and attended the same high school where Amy taught. In fact, she even taught one of his classes. I believe Rob was an oops baby because he was 12 years younger than me. Despite the age gap, we were as close as you can be to a much younger sibling. Whenever something happened or Rob needed anything, I was always the one expected to make the sacrifice. That's how my family operated. Our motto was, you need to man up and deal with it. Be the hero, son. Just let your little brother have it. You'll be better off in the long run. My father said it so often that eventually I would just walk away. Another positive aspect of my life was my best friend, Jeffrey Parks. He was the brother I wished I had. We had been best friends since the 3rd grade, and if anyone understood how I felt, it was him. Jeff was a lawyer, and I trusted him to have my back in all legal matters. Anyway, last Monday, when I got home, Amy told me she had taken the boys over to her sister's house, which was 4 doors down. When she mentioned that, I thought she wanted some alone time, if you know what I mean. But she said she wanted to tell me something. I didn't think life could get any better, but then Amy told me she was pregnant. I wanted to know when the baby was due so we could start buying things before the baby arrived. I felt as happy as a man could be. Hell, I thought, I just hope this one is a little girl so I can spoil her rotten. But for some reason, Amy seemed distant and had a faraway look in her eyes. I asked her what was wrong. Pace, it's not your child. Amy said it so softly that I almost didn't hear it. What's going on, hun? Why are you so down? Pace, I love you, but I'm not having any more of your kids, Amy said. I was a bit taken aback and asked her why. Amy, you always said you wanted a big family, so why the sudden change? Pace, Lord, this is going to be hard. Then Amy started pacing around as if what she was about to say would change everything. Amy, I love you no matter what, so just tell me how you feel right now. Just say it. Then she stopped, pulled out her phone, and hit speed dial. Can you come over here, please? Whoever she was talking to seemed to know more about this than I did. Amy, who was that? And what the hell is going on? Amy replied. Just hold on, Pace. I need help to get my words through to you. I don't want to mess up what I have to say. I asked her who was coming over and what she couldn't tell me without help. If she can't tell her husband, who else could she tell? All kinds of thoughts raced through my mind, none of them good, but what happened next blew me away. 2 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Amy answered it, and when she came back, she was followed by my mom, my dad, and my 17-year-old brother, Rob. Okay, Amy, what the hell is going on? Pace, how can I say this without hurting you? Said Amy. Rob interjected, Look, Pace, Amy is in love with me. That's what she wants to say. Mom and Dad are here to back us up. Look, bro, shit happens. We didn't mean to fall in love, but we did. The baby she's carrying is mine, and we need you to get on board with this. Amy and I are going to be a family whether you like it or not. I started laughing like this was some kind of joke, right? It had to be. I said, Look, Amy, what is it you want to tell me? No one was laughing. I looked back at Amy. She was staring at her feet. Amy, please look at me and tell me this isn't true. Tell me you're not that stupid. My dad said, Son, I know this is difficult, but what's done is done. I know you're hurting right now, but Rob is your brother, and somehow we have to find a way to get through this. We know it's asking a lot, but sacrifices have to be made. I asked my mom if she was part of this. She said, Son, I love both of my boys. I don't want this to tear our family apart. You have to find a way to live with this. We're all family. You have to be the hero in this. You need to find it in your heart not to be angry and to do the right thing. I couldn't believe they were asking me to just set aside my life for a snot-nosed little brat just because I was older. At that moment, and I mean the exact moment, I started hating them all with a passion. The fine line between love and hate had been broken. The question is, how much hate can a man have towards his family? The very family that was betraying me from all sides, my wife, my brother, and what kind of parent would go along with this travesty? Little did I know it was only going to get worse. I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned and walked out, with Amy and Mom in tow. Amy was being pulled back by Rob, and my dad was calling my mom. I walked the 4 houses down to get my kids. At her sister's house, I was met by a deputy sheriff. For a moment, I thought Amy's sister Rachel was involved too, but she looked as shocked as I did. The deputy sheriff informed me that I was prohibited from seeing my kids until the courts decided on custody. As I looked back at Amy, my hatred grew with each passing second. I asked the sheriff if I was allowed back in my own house. He inquired whose name was on the mortgage. I told him it was mine and mine alone. Since there was no order barring me from my house, I decided to go home. As I walked past my dad, he grabbed my arm. Pace, listen, son, please don't do anything you'll regret later, my dad said. We all need to sit down and talk this out like adults. I looked at him and said, Don't you ever call me son again. Now get your hand off me or you'll regret it. Now leave me alone, all you backstabbing bitches. I looked at Amy and said, If I were you, I'd hire a lawyer and a good one. Trust me, you'll need it. Enjoy the kids while you can, and now get off my property. Before I could take another step, Rob shot at me. The bullet grazed the right side of my face. Before I could react, my dad grabbed me and Rob hit me again. Thankfully, Rob's punches are weak, or it would have hurt more. The sheriff jumped off the porch, ran up, and tackled Rob. I broke free from my dad's grip and managed to land a punch on him, knocking him to the ground. When the fight ended, Rob and his father were arrested for assault. Little did I know, the best was yet to come. A couple of days later, the assistant district attorney called and asked me to testify. During my testimony, I accidentally revealed that it all started when my 29-year-old wife, whom I'd been married to for 7 years, got pregnant by my brother. I also mentioned that my brother attends the same school where Amy taught. The district attorney seemed particularly interested in this detail. 2 days later, I went to see the one person I could rely on, Jeffrey Parks, attorney at law. I arrived at his office in high spirits. However, it turned out to be another chapter in the betrayal on the Pace-Jensen freeway. As I waited for him to finish, he emerged with his new client. Amy glanced over, saw me, and smirked. I looked at Jeff and said, "Really, Jeff? You would do this to me?" Jeffrey Parks turned and walked away. That's when I realized everything had been set up so quickly because Jeff was their inside man. He knew how I would react and cut me off at the knees. I never thought he would do something like this. I will always wonder why he chose to take her case, but you know what? Who cares about his reasons? Because once he said yes, he no longer existed to me. To hell with him! I had to laugh again, but it felt different. It was just another reason to keep crossing the line. I was becoming a different person. Hate can do that to you. I went to a different kind of lawyer, Stevie Crast. Stevie was known as the scum of the earth. His motto was, "If you've got the money, go for it." He was about to close his office when I found him. I asked him if he wanted a case that would soon have national exposure. He saw dollar signs, unlocked his door, and we went inside. I wrote him a check for $10,000. I told him he would have to bail me out sooner or later. He said he couldn't be a party to anything illegal. I told him what I had planned. He laughed so hard he spit out his gum. When I got home, there was a deputy sheriff waiting for me in the driveway. He got out of his car and asked about my identity. I showed my ID and he handed me an envelope with the words, "You have been handed over." I entered the house and quickly threw away the papers without even looking at them. After that, I made a few phone calls, had a snack, and went to bed, looking forward to the new day. After a restful night's sleep, I went about my morning chores, making sure that my appearance was impeccable. As soon as I went outside to pick up the newspaper, I was ambushed. "Mr. Jensen, is it true that your wife, a teacher, is expecting your brother's child?" one reporter asked. Another asked where she worked, and a third demanded to know why she hadn't been arrested. I evaded the question by suggesting that they contact the prosecutor's office. From that moment on, life turned into a nightmare for everyone involved in this ill-fated case. Reporters camped outside Amy's school, my parents' house, Jeff's office, and Amy's sister's house. Jeff craved fame, but not that kind. When Amy and my parents first approached Jeff, they thought Rob was at least 18, but no less. What infuriated Jeff even more was that his office was being picketed by a family rights group. To top it off, one protester threw cow liquid at him. The following day, I made an appearance on the Nancy Grace Show, where she spared no harsh words in referring to Amy as anything but a child of God. If you're familiar with Nancy Grace's TV program, you'll know that once she catches wind of something, she latches onto it like a dog with a bone. Throughout the entire saga, Nancy and her team were fixated on Amy and her group of associates. "Good evening, everyone," exclaimed Nancy. "Here we have a woman walking freely on our streets, pregnant by an easily influenced young man. And where is the district attorney?" I watched the show back later. I must admit, I looked rather sharp, if I do say so myself. Though, as they say, the camera adds 10 pounds. 2 days later, Amy was apprehended. Rob was removed from my parents' custody and placed in a juvenile facility. It was later revealed that he would remain there until he reached 18. A month passed, and I found myself sitting in the courtroom facing Amy and what used to be my family. She was being represented by someone I once considered a friend, but now labeled as an asshole. The only person I truly felt sympathy for was my mother. She sat there, visibly despondent. It was truly heartbreaking. But alas, such is life. During the past month, Amy and Mrs. Jensen had called me countless times, pleading for a sit-down discussion before things escalated further. I posed a question to Amy. "Did you bother to sit down and talk with me before you got involved with my brother?" Her silence provided all the answer I needed. There was no point in further conversation. After Amy's arrest, my children were returned to me. In a swift custody hearing, the judge granted me full custody, along with child support and the home already in my name. As the criminal trial approached, I prepared to testify. I sought justice, hoping Amy would face a lengthy prison sentence, but it didn't happen. Amy never stood trial. Instead, she accepted a plea deal and received a 312-year sentence. During her sentencing statement, she pleaded for my forgiveness. I almost pitied her. Her life was in shambles. Her career as a teacher was over, and, perhaps worst of all, she would have to be a criminal for the rest of her life. It's been 4 years since then. I relocated with the children, moving 2,000 miles away. We're now a family of 7, comprising my 3 sons and Amy's 2 daughters. We've become like a smaller version of the Brady Bunch,